prayer before we have the message. Lord, help us to take this ancient story and understand what it means for our lives today, Lord. Teach us this by the power and grace of the gospel message. That we can approach this story with fresh eyes if we've read it 100 times before, or if this is the first time that we're hearing this story, Lord, that you'll breathe life into it for us and make it known what it means in our lives right now. From this ancient tale, Lord, give us the modern-day context to understand what it means for us these days. Pray for this, and the gospel be heard in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, good morning, guys. Great to have you. Throughout the summer, if you haven't been here, we've been going through, as Dennis mentioned, the book of Exodus, kind of hopping through it and seeing this narrative of God working with his people and what it actually means. Like a turbine engine blowing on me there. Okay, now we're better. Looking at what this means for God liberating his people. And I was at lunch last week, and somebody who heard last week's message said, what do you mean by freedom? Like when you say that God, the Lord's giving freedom to them, what do you mean for that, like in our lives? What does that actually mean? And I realized that being the central component to this whole sermon series, I've done a horrible job at explaining that apparently. So let me unpack that a little bit just right now. What the Lord's doing with these people is they're on a spiritual journey. They're on an exodus. And throughout the process, what he's trying to do to them is reveal himself so that they can be free from anything that captivates them. See, they were slaves to the Egyptians, literal slaves. And we'll see today in this passage that they're slaves of another type as well. But what you have to know is that what God is trying to do is he's trying to lay out a blueprint for freedom, for liberation. And he's doing the same thing in our lives. Anything that captivates us, that enslaves us, he's trying to say, listen, this is how the gospel will free you. It almost will take the shackles off of your wrist and off of your legs, from whatever burdens you, from whatever holds you back, from whatever Lord is lording over you this day. Now, before I go forward, I'll just touch briefly on the historicity of this event, because we just read this, or Paul rather read this wonderful story, and it sounds just like that, and many people say, well, it's just that, it's just a story, it didn't really happen, and other people wrestle with whether it did or could have happened. And I don't want to belabor too much time on this point today, but I want to touch on it only because here at Soul Grace, I like to say that we're what we call being intellectually honest with the scriptures, meaning we read the Bible and we can ask questions of it. We can raise doubts about things. We can bring historicity and science to it, and we can ask those type of questions. That's good. I welcome that here. We welcome that here. This is an environment of doubts and questions. That's perfect. And you know, I could spend a whole message talking about that, and I'm not going to. That's just the convenient thing of being a pastor. You can say, this is a big topic. We're not going to discuss it today. We're going to go on to another topic. See, it's easy, convenient for me to do that. No, you can go into, yes, you can do the Ridley Scott version. There was in his movie Gods and Kings, there was an earthquake and then a tsunami or something to that effect, and that what it explains the water's rushing away and the water's rushing back, and that's fine. You can read any number of oceanographic articles about whether this could have happened. We know that there was a late 1700s account of Napoleon's army not too far from this location where Moses and the Israelites were, and they were going through the seabed at low tide through this strait here, and the water rushed back so quickly that it was going to almost drown his army, part of his army. And so, we have recorded accounts where we can say, well, it was the tides that did it, it was whatever, there's any number of explanations. But to just get wrapped up into whether or not this happened and how it happened is to miss the entire beautiful point of this story and what God is doing with his people and what God tells you and me about salvation, about being truly, truly liberated. To do that, it's the elephant in the room, and you have to discuss it, and I'm full well willing to talk with you after the sermon about it, but that's not really the point, and Paul reminds us about this. Paul says there's a deeper story going on here, and you see it in the book of 1 Corinthians when he's writing to the Corinthian church. And Paul says in 1 Corinthians 10, he says, For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. What Paul is saying is this. You have to know this story. You have to know what the meaning of this story is if you're really, really going to start to tap in to who God is and what he's doing in your life. If you want to find freedom, if you want to find that soul freedom that you've been longing for your life, if you want to get free from whatever it is that enslaves you, addiction, reputation, achievement, success, comfort, security, whatever is the thing that you've elevated to such a level that it captivates your attention and it riddles you with anxiety, he says, Paul is saying, listen, you have to know this story of baptism, of the water coming down and what it signifies and what it means. So let's look into this today, and this is what I want to look at. This whole thing is about freedom and how you and I can find personal spiritual freedom, because everyone in this room, by the nature of being in this room, is on a spiritual journey. You are all on an exodus, whether you know it or not. Whether you say, I've been a Christian for years, you're still on a journey. You're still on a journey to find the way that God wants to truly liberate you, free you up from what shackles you down. So let's look at this today. And I'm going to call it under 3 headings: why freedom, how freedom, and who freedom. Why freedom, how freedom, and who freedom. Why do you need freedom? How do you get it? And who's done it? Still in the turbine over here, but it's comfortable nonetheless. And it's not, I intentionally did bad English on that. Don't worry. I'm not that bad at English grammar. I know. Why freedom, how freedom, who freedom? Maybe then you'll remember it. That's what I figure. I don't know if my grammar is that bad. Why freedom? Why do you need it? Why do you need true, deep liberation? The Israelites in this story show us something very, very interesting about being captive to something. See, you think that now that they're away from the Egyptians, that they're going to be free, that they're going to be carefree, that all their problems are solved. Not so. The Egyptians are chasing after them now. And the Egyptians say, what did we do? Now let's go back and get them and put them back into captivity. And you would think that the Israelites would say, listen, let's call on God. We just saw 10 plagues that he did to free us. Let's call on him and do it. But what's their reaction? If you look back at the text, what their reaction is, it's completely delusional. It's completely delusional, and it shows that even though they're freed from the literal bondage, they're not free yet from the bondage inside. They're still captivated by something. They're still captivated by fear. They're still captivated by circumstances. Look back here. If you look back in the story, what do they say in 11 and 12? They say, it was better for us in Egypt. They say, wait a second, Moses, didn't we tell you we didn't want to come out here anyway? And that's completely delusional. It's a complete revising of history, because if you go back to chapter 4, verse 29, Moses comes to the elders, performs the miracles, and the elders say they worshiped the Lord. But now they're saying, wait a second, didn't we tell you we didn't want to be out here in the first place? They're completely mad. They're losing their sense of rationality because their circumstances have turned against them. See, what this shows us is this. No matter where you are in your life, you're going to worship something. Something is going to be enslaving you. You're not truly free. And to even push this a little bit further, do you know when Moses, remember when he goes to Pharaoh, we looked at this a few weeks back, and he says, let my people go so that they may worship me. See, he doesn't just say, let my people go out in the desert so they can party. Let my people free so they can be free. It's not freedom for freedom's sake. He's saying, let my people be free so that they may serve me. And what they're saying is this. The book of Exodus is showing you that either you're going to serve this thing or you're going to serve this thing. It's almost psychologically naive of us to think that we serve nothing. See, the Israelites served the Egyptians first. They got free from that. But now in their panic, when circumstances turn against them, you see what they really worship now. You see that they're still enslaved to something. They're enslaved to fear, their circumstances, things going right, And when things go wrong, they freak out to the point that they are riddled with anxiety, to the point that they start making up stories. They start saying, we didn't want to be here in the first place. And Moses would look at them and say, yeah, you did. What, are you stupid? You came with me. You said this. You said that. And they say, no, we didn't. They're completely out of their mind. Why? Because their circumstances, their sense of control is crumbling around them. We all live for something. That's why you get out of bed in the morning. That's why you do what you do on a daily basis. There's something or some things that you are going to live for. And they can be good things, like comfort, like family, like relationships. But when those good things become the ultimate thing, when those good things come into the throne of your heart and they take away God from that throne, what will happen is when that thing goes away, you will be riddled with fear, crumbling with anxiety. Look at these people. They could have invoked the name of God. They have God's power right in front of them the whole time. They're following his very angel. And when the circumstances turn against them, when they start losing control, it eats at them so much that they take God out of the equation altogether. They say it would have been better for us to be in Egypt as slaves rather than die out here. They're making a logical non sequitur. They're making a false dichotomy. Because all in all, they weren't worshiping God yet. Not truly. All in all, they didn't have freedom. They had anxiety, worry, and it was eating them up. See, this is what sin is. I went a long ways around on that one, didn't I? This is what sin is. It's not merely breaking rules. It's forgetting the relationship. Primarily, sin is when you and I take any one thing, even be it a good thing, and we put it in the place of God. And you'll know you've done that in your life when you lose that thing, or when that thing turns on you, and you start to crumble. If you live for work, what happens when you lose your job? If you live for the reputation of other people around you, what happens when somebody spites you or spurns you? If you live for the affirmation and the applause of people to say, good job, what happens when they don't say that and there's silence from the crowd? If you live for your family, what happens when they turn against you? See, take any one thing and make it into the ultimate thing. And that thing, will, if it believes you, which it will destroy you. That's what sin does. Why freedom? We all need freedom. There's something in all of our lives, even if you call yourself a Christian, there's bound to be something that you've taken from one thing and made it into the ultimate thing, and it'll forever be your Lord and Master. And when you start to lose it, it'll start to condemn you. And you'll end up in a vicious, nasty cycle. You'll be broken. You'll be stuck. Let me explain this. And I doubt anybody has read this book. I had a bedtime story that was read to me, Briar Rabbit, Briar Fox. Anybody have this? Head nods, anybody? Okay, I'm not that old then. Some people don't even know what that is. It's fine. I'll explain it. Briar Rabbit, Briar Fox. It was a children's story that my mom used to, my mama, that's where I'm from in the South in America, that my mama used to read it to me. And there's a rabbit and there's a fox, and they're in the briar patch, which is where they live. And the rabbit loves telling everybody in the story what to do. The rabbit is the boss. The rabbit, takes great pride. Everybody's got to listen to the rabbit. And the rabbit goes around and in the story bosses this person around, tells all the animals and everything, he's always walking around with his chest stuck out. And it's kind of a mean, bossy rabbit. And he's always in control. The fox one day, Briar Fox, he doesn't like this anymore, so he decides that he's going to do something about it. And he thinks to himself, how can I get that rabbit? How can I get Briar Rabbit? I want to get him. I want to get him good, just one time, get him. And so Briar Fox decides that he's going to make it what they call a tar baby. It's a baby, looks like a man out of tar and turpentine. And if you know anything about tar and turpentine, it's sticky. It's very, very sticky. So he has this ingenious plan. So he makes a tar baby, puts a little hat on it, puts a jacket, puts little buttons for eyes, and he sits the tar baby in the road. And Briar Fox hides in the bushes, and he waits for Briar Rabbit to come by. He wants to see what's going to happen, and Briar Rabbit comes by. And Briar Rabbit, being Briar Rabbit, he's the boss. And he looks at the tar baby and says, "How do you do?" And tar baby, being a tar baby, can't talk. So he's quiet. And this really upsets Briar Rabbit. He looks at him and says, "What, are you deaf or something?" He says, "How do you do?" And tar baby remains silent, of course. So Briar Rabbit, he's getting really angry right now because he's not listening. The tar baby's not listening to him. This is the one person who's not responding to him, and he can't control him. And he starts to get upset. He starts to get a little mad. He's getting furious and says, "I'm going to give you to the count of 3. One more time. I'm going to say, 'How do you do?' And if you don't say something back to me, I'm going to haul off and punch you." So he says, 1, 2, 3. "How do you do?" Tar baby remains silent. Briar Rabbit, lines up his arm and punches him, and he gets stuck, of course. And he says, "Well, let go of my hand. Let go of my hand." He had some unchoice words for him. It's still a children's book. But he said, let go of my hand. And he says, "If you don't let go of my hand, I'm going to punch you again. And if you don't say, 'How do you do?' I'm going to punch you again." And he doesn't say anything, so he hauls off and punches him with the left arm. He gets stuck. And he says, "Oh, this is enough." And he hauls off and he kicks him and he gets stuck in his legs. And now Briar Rabbit is covered in the tar and he's stuck. And the more that he moves and wiggles, the more that he gets stuck in and deeper. And he can't get out and he can't get out. And Briar Fox jumps out of the bushes and does a little dance. And the story goes on. And I won't bore you with the rest of the details. But listen, why did I give you that story? I don't think my mother, when she read this, meant it to me this way. But that's what sin does. Do you see this? Sin is whatever it is that controls you, you'll stick your hand in it and it'll get stickier. And you'll put another hand and it'll get stickier and stickier. And you get more and more wrapped up into it. And that's exactly what's happening to the Israelites in this story. Their God was circumstance. Circumstances going well, they're happy. Oh no, circumstances going badly, now we turn on Moses. Why do you need freedom? Why do we need freedom? Because there's some tar baby in our life, and we know it. There's something that controls our heart. There's something that drives us. And you'll know it because you'll know that you're stuck in it, and the more you move, you get further and further into it. This is why we need freedom. Because we tend to place any other God above our God. Now, how do you get freedom? How did the Israelites get free in the story? And this is a really cool thing. They walked. They went through the sea. I said ocean. They went through the sea. Do you know what this is, how significant this really is? It means that in the Christian idea of being saved, the Christian understanding of liberation is that you make a decisive act to go through the water. Through the waters of judgment, and you make that act, you make that decision. And this is different than almost any other worldview you're going to have. Because any other worldview says, no, conversion is a process. Conversion takes steps. Conversion takes you improving your life, fixing one thing, and then fixing another, and then fixing another. And that is not the understanding of Christian salvation. Christian salvation says once and for all, through the waters, you find freedom. You don't earn it. It's not a gift. It is a gift, rather. You don't earn it. Nothing that you do bad is going to take it away. Nothing that you do good will ever earn it. You walk through the waters that He's parted. Do you see what this means? It means you don't try to be a Christian. You become a Christian. You don't try to find freedom in your life. You get freedom in your life through the waters. And it can happen in any number of ways. It can be some moment that you remember in your life and you say, aha, that's when I walked through the waters. Or it could be something that you don't really know in your life, but it will be a moment. This is why Jesus in John chapter 5 says that those who believed in me have crossed over from life to death, meaning past tense. You've crossed. There's no going back. There's no earning it. It's happened. C.S. Lewis gives a little story saying this is to summarize Christian freedom, Christian conversion. And he says this: some people go from Paris to Berlin by day. They know exactly when they cross the border. Others travel by night and they wake up in Berlin. They don't know when they cross the border. The important thing is that they know they are in Berlin. It doesn't matter that you can put your finger on the exact moment. The important thing is that you are there. See, the water in the story represented judgment. And God leads them from death to life. And you may say, oh, well, Pastor, that's because the Israelites must have had great faith. And maybe you're at the point where you say, I don't have enough faith. Really? I imagine some Israelites walked through these pillars of water on either side and said, wow, this is really cool. And I imagine quite many others go, I'm scared. What's going to happen? I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. It wasn't their strength of faith that brought them their salvation. It was their object of faith. Let me say that again. It wasn't the strength of their faith. It was the object. It was that they had faith in God to go through the waters. That's what Christian conversion means. It means that, not that you change your character, because by the time the Israelites get to the other side of the river, you're going to see in the next few weeks, they keep making more and more dumb mistakes. A Christian isn't that you have a changed character, although you should strive for that. A Christian is the one who has a changed status. Your status has now changed. You've gone through the waters, and you've gotten freedom. Not by any steps you've achieved, not by anything you've accomplished or done well in your life. You get it as a gift of pure grace. You can know that God accepts you. Do you see this? Right now. If you've never known it before, right at this moment, you can say in your heart of hearts, I know that God accepts me. I need not take another step. I know it. He's passed me from death to life because of what his son did for me. Because the waters didn't come crushing down on me. This is how you and I begin to experience freedom. It's not a self-help strategy. It's not a 10-step plan. It's recognizing that right in this moment, God puts you from death to life. Freedom through the water. That's why freedom. That's how freedom. Now who freedom? And I know that sounds a little weird. I told you. My English has gotten bad living abroad for many years now, but it's not that bad. Who freedom? See, if I just go, doesn't that sound good? Everybody likes that. It sounds warm and fuzzy, freedom. I think I sold you on it, hopefully, if I did a good sales job here. You don't want the tar baby. You don't want to be stuck in there anymore, do you? You want to be free. You want to be liberated. You say, good, now I got it. I'm good. Let's go. Coffee time. Oh, you'll fail miserably. Because you won't see one of the most important factors in this story that comes up 3 times. If you look back at this story, there's something interesting that occurs 3 times. First, in verses 11 and 12, the Israelites are grumbling. Blah, 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 blah. We won't go back to Egypt. We don't want to die here. They're mad. They're angry. They're grumbling. And then in the next verses, Moses is so cool. He's so calm. And then in verse 15, God does something rather interesting. And it comes across better in the Hebrew if you were to read it in that. But he looks at Moses, and he says, why are you crying out to me? Whoa, 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 whoa. That's not fair. It was them who was crying out, Moses says. Ain't me. He could say that, but he doesn't. Why? Because Moses knows something of the way God works. See, Moses is the mediator. And you'll see it in the next couple of weeks. He does this again and again. He's the mediator. He takes the rebuke that they deserved. And it looks unfair. And in the Hebrew, it's very harsh when God says, why are you, singular, by the way, crying out to me, God says. And Moses could have looked at him and said, that's not fair. I'm not crying out. They are. But he doesn't. He takes the rebuke. Because he knows something of God. He knows that whenever God works out salvation, whenever God works out freedom, there always has to be a mediator. Someone to come between him and his people. If you don't believe me, look at 2 other instances in this story. What happens when the Pharaoh's army is coming after the army, the Israelites? What does God do? He takes his angel from the front and moves him to the back. See, God comes between the penalty of death the Egyptian army and the Israelites. First, he uses Moses as the mediator. Then he uses his angel as the mediator. It's the angel that comes between the Israelites and near certain death. But here's the coolest one. Do you notice who goes into the water to fight the Egyptians? The Lord. That's a little curious. Because if you notice in the story too, it says that the Israelites have an army. Wouldn't God just simply say, I'll take your army, let me triple it in size, and I'll give you more weapons than them, go fight them. Go fight your own battles. I'll help you out, but you fight. You do this, you earn it. He has every right to say that to them. Yet, first he goes through Moses and gives him the rebuke that they deserved. Then he takes his angels and puts them on the backside in the most dangerous place. Then he goes into the water himself to fight for them. Who freedom? It's him going into the waters for them. It's him fighting for them. Back to that passage in 1 Corinthians that I read a little earlier in chapter 10. I'd left off part of it on purpose. Because Paul says, listen, don't you know that all the people who passed through the sea were baptized into Moses, meaning Moses covered them. Moses took the rebuke that they deserved, but he took just a rebuke. There's someone else in that story too, Paul says. He says, all along there was the rock that was with them. And the rock was Jesus Christ. Do you see this imagery that Paul's doing? He's saying, you were covered by Moses, yes, but really what you were covered by was the rock. The rock took the water. The rock took the crushing pain of judgment for you. The water came down and it hit the rock. It hit Christ on the cross. See, another story involving water. I love the story of Noah and the ark. And the cool thing about it, if you think about it, yeah, Noah gets saved. But what takes the weight of the water? The ark. Something or someone has to pay down the cost. If the water in this story represents judgment, the judgment for all sins of the world, and it comes crashing down, something's got to take it. And know this, it wasn't you, it wasn't them. There's always a mediator. God says, I always work this way. Somebody comes between me and you to take what you deserve, and they get it. And we know now, because of what Paul wrote, that that person was Jesus for us. Who freedom? Who is the one that lets you and me have deep soul freedom? It's Jesus. The rock. Do you ever go to a coastline and the waves are coming in and crashing in a turbulent ocean? Is it the homes that get the beating? No. It's the rocks out in the water that get the beating. You have to know that the cosmic waves, the cosmic tides of judgment came down on him, not on you. Do you see this story now of the Israelites? It's pure grace. It's purely beautiful grace. They didn't earn this. It wasn't that they were more religious than the other people, that they had lived better lives than the other people. No, because look, right before they go through the water, they're complaining about God. They're forgetting about God, actually. They've forgotten him, and he says, I won't forget you. I go into the waters to fight for you. Do you see now? Your freedom. You can get out of the tar babies of your life. Because he gave up his life and went into to take the waters for you. And when the oceans rise and the thunders roar in your life, just know that they roared on him infinitely more than they can ever roar down on you. Whatever it is in your life that eats at you, whatever it is that strikes fear into your heart, do you not see that that's like a little drop in a puddle compared to the oceans of judgment that came raining down on Jesus on the cross for you? Moses was just a pointer. He mediated. He took the rebuke that they deserved. Jesus took the death that you and I deserve. The story of the flood, or the sea, the crossing of the Red Sea, has always been held up, at least for me, as a sign of the way God gets back at people. This is the way God gets back at those evil, evil people in the world. And God says, don't you know my glory is going to be shown through this act, because it's an act of pure, unmerited grace. Israelites, you didn't deserve it, but you get it. Now, cross the river. Get the freedom that's there for you. Let me close by saying this. Let's be real practical. What does this mean? Today's Sunday, tomorrow's Monday. You got your life to live tomorrow. What does it mean? You say, okay, I'm free. Good. What's the point? Make a point, Pastor. Wrap it up. It's lunchtime. I got you. Here's your point. Do you notice what advice he gives them? If you look back in the story, when they're panicking, when their gods of control and comfort have come crashing down on them, Moses says, be still and know that the Lord's fighting for you. See, when you become a Christian, your status changes, and freedom should mean stillness in your heart. You and I no longer need to fight the battles. You and I no longer need to worry and fight against people that have wronged us. You and I no longer need to fight anymore. Moses says, just be still and know he's the one who already fought for you. Why is your heart troubled today? What keeps you up at night and what wakes you up early in the morning? What robs you of the stillness? Moses says, be still and know that he's fighting for you. Let me end by reading something from the late, great Charles Spurgeon, the Baptist minister, who had a flair for the poetic, so this is going to be old language for you. I will not do it in my British accent, although he is British. I'll spare you. I have a good British accent, by the way, but I'll spare you today. But I want to read this to you. This is what he says from a sermon that he gave in Exodus 14, and I put it in your bulletins. You can follow along, and it should be on the screen as well. Stand still, then, and see salvation in Jesus. Well, says one, but you really do not mean to say that I am now, just as I am, to trust Christ to save me in all it has done? I do. Sinner, thou hast not misunderstood me. It is just that. Sinner, do nothing do, either great or small. Jesus did it all long, long ago. To add anything to him were to insult his perfect work. To hope to complete his matchless righteousness were impertinence. To imagine that thou couldst make better that which he has finished were an idle, soul-destroying dream. Take a finished Savior just as he is, and you are saved now. Although you have no good thing of your own, away with those rusty farthings of your own merit, those proposals and vows of your own doings. Take Jesus as he is. And that act of accepting Christ through his merit saves your soul. After you have done this, then will come the command, go forward. For the present, all we have to say to you, poor trembler, is stand still and see the salvation of God. If you can call yourself a Christian, maybe you haven't stood still yet, really. See the salvation in him, the mediator, the one who took the ocean's waters for you. And be still and know that he fights for you. Go now into silent prayer, reflecting on this truth.